Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it is Wednesday in the river. We've got a ton to talk about from national news all the way down.
Before we get started, I want to wish a happy Rosh Hashanah to our Jewish friends. It starts tonight and
at sunset. And since we're doing that, I'm also going to take a point of personal privilege. And we talked about the passing of David Machado.
Yes.
On the last show, we have some specifics. He will, for the people who want to go and don't have access to computers and things, and some of the retirees don't. The wake will be on Sunday night from 4 to 7 at Soviet Funeral Home on Bedford Street. And the funeral will be at Espiritu Santo Church at 10 o'clock on Monday. And I assume that, obviously they're going to leave from Soviet Funeral Home on Monday. So if you would like to attend, Dave spent all his life basically fighting for the people and their right for the little guys. So I show him the respect he truly deserves. So
we'll be attending the funeral itself, correct?
Yes, I will be. Yeah,
so we won't have a show next Monday.
Correct. I will be.
I to make that clear.
Yeah, I do have to issue a warning. There may be a lightning strike at Espiritu Santo Church if I walk. But I do have to issue a warning to the people if I go in there, the building may crumble or something. I don't know, but yeah, I will be. Obviously, I've worked with Dave virtually almost continuously since 1981, and I know the entire family. I used to play handball with one of his sons virtually every day, and at the boys' club, and his other son was on the fire department with me, and of course I know Dave's wife, and so I know the entire family. We've worked together for the people, and without the fanfare and without the money. Dave was the president of the Retirees Association for decades before I took over, and now I got somebody calling me about I know what it is. It's about the floral arrangement that we're going to be sending to the thing. So Kevin doesn't know that we have a show, but yeah. So obviously I'll be attending a funeral. We'll not do a show unless you want to do a show later on in the day. That's fine with me. But I will.
No, I think that that day, Sunday and Monday, should be a day for you to reflect and mourn, because I know that this is not an easy thing for you. I know that having such a long history with the gentleman meant a lot to you, and this man was an amazing person in Fall River. He really was. I knew his brother, who Dave used to take care of because his brother didn't have all his marbles. But Dave had a lot of stresses on his back, but he handled them all. He lived a good long life, though. He lived a good long life. I mean, if we could have gotten a few more years, it would have been great. But
credit union. He did so many things, and that's the thing. Dave was always there. at the meetings. He was always there with the, fighting for the regular guy. That's the thing. It's not the fanfare and the, and the political. It wasn't for photo ops, things that under the radar that that the people who do this do every day, because they're not looking for cameras. They're looking to do the right thing, and I mean, it's incredible when you think about the time that he spent. Because if you go back from the time when he was the president of the police union to today, my God, that's got to be 50 years easy, maybe 60 years.
Right.
So, I mean, to be in the fray that long, and in spite of the frustration and the aggravation that you take dealing with politicians, he stayed in the fight. He was truly a great asset to this city, and a great guy. So, yeah, I really wouldn't want to do a show on Monday, but if we have.
No, I think that out of
Well, but I
respect,
appreciate that. Thank you.
out of respect for you and for Mr. Machado, I think that it's only right that we don't have a show on Monday. One thing I want to take care of right now, this week, there was a lot of rumor about an alleged police officer having his home raided. That we found out is an absolute false story. And we've also gotten a statement from former Chief Garvin. And former Chief Garvin said, let me quote him. He was unable to confirm the reports at any time. Sergeant Moses of the Fall River Police Department stated that he confirmed with all parties that the reports are false and, quote, no such incident occurred. Garvin reached out again and stated he had spoken to the officer and confirmed that no raid had taken place. Look what I'm going through. This is just another attempt to discredit me and our department. More factions. That's exactly what he said. Something doesn't smell right. Something doesn't smell right. Whether it's people inside the department trying to get even or create problems, whether it's somebody who has an axe to grind and doesn't want to have any good things come out of Chief Garvin's term, I think that it's time that we put the factions aside, and I think it's time. I mean, I know the mayor is interviewing in the department for a chief. I think it's time that we go outside of the department. This way, we can clean up the house. We can clean up the house. You can't clean up the house with the people who are involved in the house.
No, you're right, CJ. They're part of the factions. The problem is, listen, the world is falling apart because we got lack of leadership on a national level. The Biden-Harris administration has allowed the Middle East. We're on the verge of World War III, and because they sit idly by and try to play both ends against the middle. You can't. It's a lack of leadership. And what we have in Fall River is a lack of leadership at the top. Not, no matter who you put in charge of the police department, there seems to be problems. And you're right. I think it's time to go outside the department. Because Paul Coogan can't pick anybody he doesn't like or isn't friendly with. Now, there are allegations that the next selection, or the one with the supposedly who's the favorite, and there has to be somebody that's acting chief. You can't have a department without a head. So, I mean, there's got to be somebody acting chief. Of course, we don't know anything that goes on until after the fact, and we only get their version. But it's a lack of leadership by Coogan. Coogan just puts in his cronies, and then we have factions. And listen, I don't think any chief can overcome it from internally, because they will be part of another faction. And that's the problem. The police has been allowed to break up into camps, tribes, and they know that Coogan is a weak mayor, and if they keep complaining to him, he'll worry more about getting reelected and losing their votes, and then he'll just ultimately cave like he did. He put in Chief Garvin.
4 chiefs, 4 of them.
And we know he has a close tie with Garvin's wife. Got her a job in the school department, and so he's friendly. That doesn't mean he couldn't be effective. And the problem is, I don't think anybody can be effective. That's a lack of leadership. You got to put somebody in there who doesn't know anybody in that department, can go in and say, listen, shut up, come to work, and do your job. This is not a club. I know about the clubs, the firefighters club, the police officers club, the Thin Blue Line. This is from where? Oh, New Jersey. I guess that's a little NJ. Okay. Yeah. Well, I think when Cranston did it, they hired a retired state police officer. But look, you need somebody to come in and restore discipline and order. And listen, you don't have to like people you work with. I worked on a fire department for 38 years. I had people I didn't like, I had people I liked, and I had people who I didn't give two shits about. I socialized with the people I liked off duty, and I worked with the people I worked with when I was on duty. If I disliked them, the only criteria was they had to do their job. And this is the problem. When you allow the fabric of the discipline and you lose to use a military term, the esprit de corps, and let that erode into warring camps, political camps that have agendas, be they personal agendas, collective bargaining agendas, or whatever agenda they are, you've lost it. You've completely lost control. Coogan never had control because he's incapable. He's got no spine. Never did. All he does is hide and cover up and take care of it. He's a pure politician. The worst leader I've ever seen. Couldn't lead a one-man parade. And, you know, Chief Garvin did what he thought was right, and he's under attack now, and he's right. It shouldn't happen. You don't like the guy, don't talk to him. You don't like the guy, you don't have to socialize with him. Nobody's forcing you to go have a beer with them when you get off duty. You know, I mean, this is not the way it's supposed to be done. These are police and fire are quasi-military organizations. In the military, there is a separation between officers and enlisted men because you have to give orders. And there is discipline in the military. You have to obey orders. And you have to put aside your likes and dislikes. When you're off duty, you can do whatever you want, but when you're on duty, you're a soldier. And you follow orders, whether you like them or not. One guy wears a field jacket, everybody wears a field jacket. One guy takes his field jacket off, everybody takes their field jacket off. That's the way it is. And they've lost it. They've completely lost control of the police department. If this is true that there are people inside the department doing this, there should be a complete investigation and they should be disciplined. They're getting paid to be police officers or firefighters and do the job. And listen, I saw guys that couldn't stand each other. Absolutely couldn't stand each other. Worked together every day on the fire department. When I got on the job, I started at the Globe Station. I had 2 guys at the Globe Station that never talked to each other. Ever. In 30 years. Hated each other. Absolutely hated each other. And when I first walked in the door of the Globe Station, they told me those 2 guys don't talk to each other. They don't eat anywhere near each other. They never speak to each other. But at a fire, they worked together. They were both drivers. They drove engines. They were pump operators. And the only time they ever spoke was at a fire, when one would get on the radio and say, "Send me the water," or "Put up the pressure," or "Lower the pressure." They worked for 30 years together. Never said a word in the fire station to each other. And I worked with them for a very long time. I started at the Globe. I was at the Globe until I made lieutenant. I left for a short time when I made lieutenant, came back to the Globe as lieutenant, and they were still working there. Then I went back to the Globe as a chief, and they were still working there. And they weren't speaking to each other on the day I walked in a fire station and the day they retired. They never spoke to each other. So it is possible. You know why it's possible? Because it's a frickin' job. It's not a club. It's a job. And those jobs need discipline. I'm sure that people who disagree, even if they're in those warring camps, at a police incident, those guys that have each other's back, because that's the way it is on those jobs. And if they wouldn't, they shouldn't be there.
I agree. I agree.
This is the problem. We've completely lost control of the police department, apparently. 4 chiefs already. And what happens now? What happens now if somebody? How about the factions who don't like the next police chief? We're going to go through this dance again. This man has zero, nada leadership ability. And he doesn't care how bad, just like Biden didn't care how much this country disintegrated. Coogan doesn't care how much these departments within the city disintegrate. And with that, CJ, I'll turn it back to you.
You know, it's a sad situation. 4 chiefs, 4 years. I mean, I don't even think it's a chief a year, to be honest.
It's unacceptable. You know, it's just unacceptable.
No, it's not. It's not acceptable. And, you know, that's why I believe that we should get a chief from outside the department, whether that be from another city in Massachusetts, or like the state police did, go all the way to New Jersey. Go to New York. Okay? Pay them what they're worth, and they'll come in here and do what they need to do. But don't step in and act as a buffer. And like you said, Paul just is out there to give his supporters whatever they want. He placates them. Because if he doesn't, he might not get the votes. And he needs those votes. So let's hope that the person that they choose doesn't have the same problems that the previous chiefs had. And with that, we'll move on. Major strike. Major strike here in the United States. From Maine to Texas. The workers on the loading docks.
Yeah, longshoremen. Yeah.
Longshoremen. They're asking for a 70% increase in their wages, and they want guarantees that there will be no automation put in. No automation put in. And that's true. Okay? And let me tell you something. I'm not sure where I would be. But the status that Joe Biden's taken isn't right either. I do believe in collective bargaining. Okay? But when you've been fighting for this long, maybe it's time that an outside arbitrator come in and look at this. I don't expect the president to step in and say, this is what you get and that's it, the strike's over. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. And Kamala Harris will lose the labor unions. So again, we got to placate our supporters. Okay, but at the same time, it's costing the United States people 4.5 billion with a B. Billion with a B. And we can't afford that. Our economy is already falling apart. Although the Democrats say, no, it's not. We're better off than we ever been. Inflation's down, employment's up, but people aren't feeling it. People aren't feeling it when they go to the supermarket and they get one handbasket of groceries and it costs them $100. They're not feeling it. When you go to the market and pay $8 for eggs, and I don't want to hear it's the bird flu, guess what?
But you're right. But look, the launch was 70%. Those are huge, and the lack of automation. But listen, again, lack of leadership there too.
Right.
The president should look. It's gonna croak the country because look, if it doesn't come off, and that was one of the other problems. We get back to the core issue. The Democrats have allowed Trump spent 4 years bringing jobs back to America.
Right.
The Democrats spent 4 years getting rid of them again. So everything is made, for the most part, overseas. Now it comes in by ship, and if it doesn't get unloaded, we don't get it. And that comes for virtually everything now. And this is the problem. The president, who is too busy on the beach, and he said, I'm on the phone for, American bullshit. You're not doing anything, Joe. You don't know what day it is. Nobody knows. He should have stepped in, demanded, and assigned a mediator or an arbitrator to come in and get these sides together and put this to bed. And as far as the other statement, Democrats are pathological liars. We all know that. They say, you're making it's not that bad. Yes, it is. On one hand, they say we have a national affordability housing crisis. Well, if everybody's doing great and there's no inflation, why do we have a housing crisis? Well, because you people created one. But they lie about everything. They lie about, they spin it. Well, wages are up. That's right. Wages are up 5% and inflation's up 20%. So maybe they can't do math. Maybe they're like Waltz. They forget things. Oh, I misspoke. Oh, yeah, I was there around that time. Oh, well, wait a minute. I don't know what rank I was when I got out of the military. You're the only human being that didn't know what rank they were in the military. But all they do is lie. All they do is lie. This longshoreman strike will cripple the United States. You're right, CJ. I mean, if nothing gets off the ships, nothing gets on the trucks, it impacts everybody. The truckers, the grocery stores, the restaurants, everybody. Because America is no longer in the business of making it being self-sustaining because of the Democrats, because they're friendly with China and they export everything to China because half of these globalists, these rich elitists who comprise the bulk of the Democratic Party leadership are all globalists. They're going to go wherever they can get cheap labor. And they export everything to China, who's our worst enemy. So, you're right. This strike has got to be, absolutely got to be, and they've got to step in. They got to show a backbone. But, it's an election year. They're afraid. Like you said, they don't want to antagonize either side. because like, oh, I might lose votes. And this is a lack of leadership. I don't think Teddy Roosevelt or Abraham Lincoln or some of our former presidents who took the bull by the horns would shrink from this. They would step in regardless of the consequences because they felt they were the leaders of this country and they would have to do something for the people of this country. But these people don't. They're pure political animals, right from Joe Biden and Kamala Harris down to Paul Coogan. They care about nothing but taking care of their friends, getting rich, and getting reelected. That's all they care about. Where somebody who's a true leader will take the hits, they'll take the arrows in the forehead. This is a crisis upon another crisis. And they're trying to suppress as much news as they can. I mean, the Middle East is blowing up. Iran shot 1,000 missiles at Israel. So Israel is going to reciprocate. And we're going to have, and they're fighting. They're on the ground in Lebanon. And this is nuts. I mean, it's crazy. We can't sustain this. We have no leadership at all. And we've got to get back to having this country run by people who actually lead. I mean, if you watched that debate last night, I mean, it's scary. I mean,
that's where I was going next, actually.
Yeah. We watched that debate. You watch that debate and you see one guy who they were, it was 3 against 1 again. They said they wouldn't fact check and they tried. And Vance said, if you're going to disobey the rules, I will too. And he fact-checked them. And he showed that why he graduated, unlike Biden, without lying, at the top of his class from Yale Law School. He's a sharp guy. Look, you don't have to agree with everything he says. I don't agree with everything anybody ever says. Sometimes I don't even agree with myself after I say it. But I actually say that. I don't even agree with that. But the reality is that Waltz is a buffoon. He
looked that way. He looked that way last night. I watched it and I didn't have to put needles in my eyes. It was actually an interesting debate because it was issues based. Yeah. It was issues based. And if Donald Trump would take that lead, that's how people will see him. Issues based. Yeah. I know people don't like his rhetoric and they don't like the way he posts on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it. They don't like his social media presence. But you know what? Like J.D. Vance said, he had it right. He was doing it right. And I've got to give J.D. Vance a lot of credit because if people were expecting a WWE match at last night's debate, they were sorely disappointed. They were sorely disappointed because it was not a WWE match.
No, it was.
There were a few jabs. There were a few jabs, but there was no WWE match.
Oh no! Listen, it was great because something. It just goes to prove. But listen, personalities are personalities. Donald Trump is a different personality. He's never going to be a non-emotional debater. He's a visceral kind of guy. He's a businessman. He's used to taking charge, and he's not going to back off. He's not going to, Vance is a very measured guy. He went to law school. He learned how to be a lawyer, how to be in court and play point, counterpoint, and debate things civilly. But you know what it showed? It just goes to show that it's possible to have a civil debate. Maybe not with Donald, but you can have a civil debate. But when you debate with somebody like that you've got to understand that his personality, he could never do it. That's not him. He's not wired that way. But he, like you said, Vance made the point that doesn't matter whether you like the way he does it, but he gets it done. See, that's the key. He gets it done. These people don't. Waltz is a buffoon. Number one, he lied about his military record. He lied about he was an assistant football coach. Lied about everything. He was a commie when he ran his state. He had the rat line. He let them burn cities down. And his wife said she opened up the window to smell the tires burning. This guy's a commie. And number one, imagine if Kamala's incompetent to begin with, and look who she chose. Somebody that doesn't have one iota of idea about foreign policy. The world is blowing up, and we got two people that don't know anything about foreign policy. And I'm not holding it against them as far as Waltz is concerned. I can hold it against Kamala because she's been on the national stage for 4 years. She's the vice president of the United States. She was, as she said, the last person in the room. But she still doesn't know a damn thing about Taiwan, the Middle East, or any kind of policy. She has no policies. But the other guy's a governor, he's a state level official. I don't expect him to be an expert in foreign policy. But he's a buffoon. And I thought it was very, very telling when they shut Vance's mic up in the condescending manner when he finally said, listen, he tried to explain why one of the answers was wrong. And they said, well, thank you very much for explaining the law to us. That was those two condescending SOBs. These people, they just can't hide their disdain to anybody who is an wokey Democrat. They're so far in a tank, they need scuba gear. It was obvious again. They said they wouldn't shut off the mics, and they did. They said they weren't fact-checked, and they tried. And Vance called them on it. But Vance did a very, very good job. He was measured. He could have eviscerated Waltz. If he wanted to go after Waltz and attack him the way Trump normally attacks people, he would have turned him into rubble. You could see the nervousness in that guy's face. There were moments there where he was literally petrified. He was in way over his head. And they said 61% of the people said that Vance won. Well, the other people were all Democratic plants calling to try to make it look like it was almost salvageable. But speaking of that, I'm still getting texts from Michigan telling me to vote Democrat and everything. Now I'm getting more stuff, so it's really good. I'm checking into this attempt at election interference. They want me to vote in Michigan, but I never did. But yeah, it was a very good, because you know something, they stayed for the most part on topics. Waltz was kind of weak because they really have no solid policy. But it was kind of an old style debate. You actually had some level of civility between the two candidates. I mean, even when Kennedy and Nixon debated, it wasn't a three-ring circus. And I know you watched that debate, and I told you to put goggles on so you wouldn't stick the pins in your eyes.
I didn't have to, though.
It didn't have to.
It was a good event. I just received a text message, which is important. It's about Backbone Coogan. FYI, a DCM employee told me this morning that they will be leaving the garage on Rodman Street, that's actually Lewiston Street, behind the mechanic garage, and are moving into a building that the city is now renting across from the King Phillips Mill. They'll be renting from the owner of Scotty's Restaurant, another mayor's friend deal. This isn't confirmed, but this is coming from a DCM employee.
Well, more money for his friends. There you go. We got a building of our own, and we're going to go rent the building. It's kind of like with all the school buildings and all the buildings that the city has. We're renting space for school children at St. Anthony the Desert Church. Why? Another friend of Paul Coogan, his major shill. Who it is? Joey Camara and Tommy Corey.
And Tommy Corey, no question about it.
You're going to take care of them because they both go to that. This is what Paul, more waste of taxpayers' money. We're going to pay the rent to the owner of Scotty's Pub. Another friend of Paul Coogan. And that's an allegation. We're not going to say it's a fact yet, but it is an allegation. But again, this is all they do. Make their friends, give their friends money while the city burns. Yeah, he's not going to make a move like that without getting permission from the mayor. Because the mayor's the guy that made him in charge, Patrick. Come on. You know.
And was there a request for a proposal, a request for, a request for information, anything about renting this building? Was it ever put out there? This reminds me
before the council.
This reminds me of the old Atlantis Charter School, which changed hands and was bought for $3 million, but was sold to the city for $750. Remember that? Oh, God forbid we forget that.
Yeah. That's the problem, CJ. We don't forget on this show. So
that's right.
We got memories here. But again, this is all this guy does. The police department's falling apart. The school department's falling apart. They can't negotiate a contract. Oh, and by the way, speaking about that, I do have to segue into that. I found it ironic that Bruce Assad, who's been negotiating contracts in the school department for about, 30 years?
30 years or so, yeah.
Just realized that they shouldn't be bargaining in the public, because he didn't say that they shouldn't be bargaining that way in the first place because it's illegal. But he said it's counterproductive, and what a surprise! Bargaining in public deteriorates the ability to come to an agreement because there are too many fingers in the pie, and so they finally realized that what they were doing, they're going to stop doing it. Well, they shouldn't have done it in the first place, and it's ironic that a guy that's supposed to be a lawyer, but listen, Bruce Assad is not a labor lawyer. Because he's been negotiating contracts for 30 years doesn't mean he's a labor lawyer. You don't know crap about 150E. And that's what you got to bargain under in this state. Apparently nobody over there knows it, because it's like, you're a medical professional. It's like going to a proctologist for an eye exam. Just because they're lawyers, and that's the city hires these people to negotiate contracts, they're not truly labor lawyers. They can call themselves labor lawyers, but there are only a few highly specialized labor lawyers in the state. That has just now been confirmed. Well, I don't know who confirmed it, but again, where's the FBI checking all these insider deals? Where's the FBI looking at this mayor? Doling out taxpayer money to all his friends. Everybody gets a piece of the pie. Everybody gets a cut. That's why he wants another term. Who else's palm can he grease? What other friend can he do a favor for? Not the taxpayer. And that's the problem. The problem is we've got a situation here where the city's absolutely out of control. And he doesn't care. He doesn't care. All he does is hide and just go along his business like, I'm untouchable. Where are the feds? The feds should be here. But the feds don't care about them screwing a taxpayer. You screw somebody who's politically connected, the feds might come down. You piss off Pelosi, somebody might be knocking on your door. You piss off Biden, you're going to have the FBI, DHS, everybody else. You'll have everybody in the world at your door, handcuffing you, walking you out in shackles. But if you're a taxpayer getting screwed by this guy, renting space when we can't find space, we already got space. What's going to be the excuse, Paulie? The building's deteriorated? You're going to fire the head of maintenance? Building hasn't been maintained, it's falling apart. We've heard that for 40 years. Every building's falling apart. But we got $100,000. Kenny Pacheco just got a pay raise for maintenance in the school department. By city ordinance, DCM is responsible for the maintenance of every city building. And I know that ordinance still exists. They don't maintain it, and nobody cares. This is why you got to get to the polls. I don't care who votes, who runs in the next election. If I got to write somebody in, this guy can't get another term. I mean, this is just blatant disregard for the people of the city of Fall River. He doesn't give two shits about you. He wants you replaced. He wants to have all the people from Newton come down here, but they're not going to come. And speaking of that, before we wrap it up and I forget, one of our regular contributors, Nelson, who does a lot of research, actually now has the video of what the MBTA presented for the DeBall corridor. And you know that center strip that they're talking about building parking garages, which Kenny will probably have a cut like he did downtown. He had a cut of that garage, didn't he, CJ?
I believe so.
He did. I know Stewie Kuznets did, and I believe he had a little cut on it. He was making some money on that parking garage. So, you know, Kenny's going to have his fingers in all this retail, parking garages, obliterating the view of the beautiful waterfront they were going to build. Well, guess what? The MBTA told the citizens of Fall River, made a presentation, and even had, from what I've been told, they set up a program of a person driving in both directions on the Wall Street and showed you the beautiful open space and waterfront views you were going to get on that corridor. Now, it's going to be a mess, traffic mess, retail stores in the middle, people coming in and out of those driveways and everything else. That's not what they told you they were going to do. They lied to you again.
When do they ever tell the truth? This is a Democratic state.
They sold you a bill of goods again. All they wanted was to get their greedy mitts on that land. They even passed a law to tell you you don't have any control over what they do. But you don't go to the polls. And they're taking you again. Paul's going to be paying rent to another one of his friends. They give him a campaign contract. Quid pro quo. Where's the feds? Back to you, CJ.
I have no idea where they are. Maybe they're up for coffee at Starbucks. Well, we filled you up with a lot of information today, and none of it is bullshit. Which is the key. Which is the key. Remember that. That's the key. I want to thank you all for watching, and remember, stay safe, stay angry, and hold your politicians accountable. We'll see you on Friday. Have a great day. I have no idea where that came from.